I received some Zebra Zensation Colored Pencils as a gift, and I thought that I would try them out with you and give you a little bit of a review, my own opinions of what I think of this set. And the first thing I noticed about this set when I opened it up is that it has a kind of a cool little case on it, and when you pull it apart here, then you can actually not really sure how that's supposed to go. This way? Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? And it sits up for you. Isn't that lovely? So you can just set it right up, and as you work, it's kind of nice to have it sitting up. This set is really interesting to me in that there are 24 colors here, and the colors, I think on the website you can actually find names for the colors, but on the pencils themselves there's only numbers on them, so whether that's important or not, I don't know. This set is, I think, typically used with adult coloring books, card making. I cannot find on the web so far a chart that shows me what the light fast ratings are on these pencils, as you would with Prismacolor and some of the others. They're a medium range price, and but if you're going to do cards and coloring books and just color for your own enjoyment, they're kind of a neat set to work with, and I'll tell you why. What I've learned a little bit about using them in just a short time. I was doodling last night with them on a piece of just copy paper, and they're fun to use. They're transparent for the most part. On a paper like this, there's a lot of tooth, so I get a lot of spottiness. As far as blending goes, I have some blenders here that I thought that I would try out on them. Let me open up this package just to kind of see how they blend. Do they blend pretty well? Probably not with a card underneath. There we go. Not bad, not bad. I have to put a little bit of pressure on this particular paper because this paper is very, very toothy. But you can see that it's picking up some of this, and it's blending. Now, if I was going to blend two different colors together, it doesn't really pick it up on the stump. This paper is really quite toothy, and so it's going to make it more difficult to blend naturally. But the colors are really clear and bright. I like that. I like bright colors. And the colors themselves, the pencils are mechanical pencils. They have this wonderful triangular shape to them, so they don't roll off of your desk while you're working with them, which is kind of nice because, as you can see with some other items that I have, they tend to roll around on the desk while I'm working. And it's not always easy to work with, especially with Prismacolors, because you can let them, if they roll off the table and fall, they actually can break the leads inside, so that's not a good thing. But you just press on the backs of them, and you get this 2mm lead that comes out, and it's a fairly large lead. It's kind of nice because when you work with it, it doesn't really need sharpening per se. Let me make this a little bit less of a shadow. There we go. Just like so. What I will say that I noticed right off the bat with pretty much all of the colors as I work with them is that they're quite transparent. The pigments in them just are really transparent, so that will make blending colors fairly easy, because all you really have to do is put another color on top of this, and the two will be blending since it is so transparent. This card is a very smooth stock paper, so it's much more smooth than the copy paper that I was playing around with last night just for fun. But if I take a darker, let's go for kind of a purplish and maybe put in some shadows, just press the end and I get that tip to come down and decide where I want my light to come from. You can see the shadows go in. Oops, went over the edge. Fairly easily. to get shadows in with this. Okay, let's hop into the yellow. I'm really curious to see how bright this yellow is. Because it's so transparent, it's not a really strong color. It's pretty bright. I like it. I think it's nice. Greens, there's 24 colors to choose from. That's pretty good. A pretty good array of colors. And the colors are really nice. They are really bright. I like how bright they are. Now naturally, if I was going to do pet portraits and things like that, I might have a really hard time finding the colors that I need in this set. So that just wouldn't be the way I would go. Like I said, I cannot find a list of how durable the colors are as far as light is concerned. How will they fade in time? So I would be a little bit shy maybe to put them on art that I actually sell. To use them with anything that I'm actually putting out for sale. Okay, well let's hop into the browns, because I heard in one review on these that someone was not that excited about the browns. They thought the browns were a little bit dull. And I've got two. One of them is kind of, this is a little bit more like a burnt sienna. This is number 19. But these two browns, maybe I'll test them before I get too anxious to start coloring my dog, because between the two of them, I'm assuming that 23 here is probably the darker of the two. And it is. There we go. And they're actually, one is a little bit red and one is just a little bit more of a, well, one is more yellow and one is a little bit more bluish, purplish. So let's fill in with the yellow toned brown. Now, as I fill in, if I had really big spaces to color, I know right away that this 2mm lead, although it's nice, probably would take me a really long time to color in large spaces smoothly. And for those students who have troubles anyways, they feel like they're pressing too uneven or too hard when they're coloring in, and a lot of times feel then that they've got too many lines and they can't get a smooth color down. This might not be their favorite pencil, just because I can see that happening with this to some extent. I don't know, it's not really too bad, because the fact that it is so transparent, the pressure doesn't seem to be making a huge amount of difference on how light or dark it goes down. Okay, and then if I was going to put shadows in with that, I'd have to be a little careful, because this pencil has just, this other brown has just a little bit different feel to it than the one I was using. The previous one was a little bit more slick on the paper, and this one drags a little bit more on the paper. But you can get a basic shadow in there. Okay, now let's see if I can shadow or shade a little bit with pressure instead of a different color. Not too bad. Not too bad. I'm fairly satisfied with that. The shadow's coming from this side. Got a little bit of too much texture going on right there, but I can probably smooth it down. I don't really think that my blender is going to make a big difference on this paper, so I'm not even going to bother with it because it's such a smooth paper. There's not enough tooth to really make a difference. So a color I haven't used, maybe, how about some lavender for his eyes? I think dogs typically, whoop, oh, there, it just fell right down on me, didn't it? I'm going to set it down for the minute just because I'm afraid it's going to continue to make noise for us. Okay. Not too bad. I am so used to a very creamy wax-based pencil, the Prismacolor in particular, and even the Caran d'Ache. Are so smooth and creamy when you put them down. And this pencil actually, it's not that it's not creamy and smooth, but it's a little bit more dry, it feels. It does color in really nice, what do I want to say, kind of pastel tones. They're light tones. Okay, so I don't want him to have a purple nose, so I'm going to go back over it with the blue and kind of tone it down to more of a gray nose. I really don't want to go to the black right off the bat, but eventually I will add some black to it so he doesn't have just a big purple nose. However, I suppose in a cartoon it's not necessarily wrong. Okay, let's just hop into the black. Now there is a gray in here. This gray has a lot of green in it, I would say. It almost looks like green when you hold it over the pink because they're complementary. So let's try the black on here and see what happens. And give him more of a black nose. Not too bad, that's good. I'm pretty pleased with the performance of these pencils so far. Now, as we know, a healthy dog is going to have a wet nose, so I'm going to go back with an eraser, a very dirty eraser at that. Make sure it's clean before I use it, and I'm going to make a little highlight on his nose. There we go. So it looks like he has a little bit of sheen on there. I could even probably go back in and erase it a little bit more. I'm going to use a mechanical pencil to do that just because I have an electric eraser that I absolutely adore, and it gets into really small spaces and very quickly creates things like that for you, but it's kind of fun sometimes to do things the old-fashioned way. Okay, now I've got a bumblebee here who probably has black on his head, which means every other stripe is going to be black. And back to that wonderful yellow, which actually initially I thought was kind of weak just because these are such transparent colors, but in reality I think it's a pretty strong yellow. It's pretty bright. It just happens to be light. Okay, let's pick out a few other colors for some of these flowers. I get a chance to really try out all of the colors to see what the differences are, because some of them really do have a different feel. Now when you're trying to get into really small spaces, your tip here, as you can see, is it's fairly large when it comes right down to it. I'm going to pull out a Prismacolor so you can kind of compare the sizes. Not as big as the lead that's inside of the Prismacolor pencil, and which is pretty typical of most pencils. I think some of them, some pencils are larger than the Prismacolor. Just the barrel in particular is larger, but for the most part, They're not too different. The real difference then becomes when I need a point, a really sharp point on the end of this. I'm going to have to use a sharpener to get that because I won't otherwise have a sharp point. But you know, in reality, when I'm using just the tip edge of this, I can get pretty fine lines. So I'm not really convinced that I will ever need a sharpener with these pencils ever. So that makes these great pencils for traveling. If you're on the plane, you don't have to take a sharpener, especially, you know, anything that requires batteries or gets plugged in either way or makes noise. This would be a nice thing to work on if you just want to be a wallflower and you're observing something where you don't really have to look. You're listening. But you also don't want to draw attention to yourself. It might be really nice to have a set of these pencils in particular with you because they just don't require sharpening. And they are fun to work with. They're a little bit more reminiscent of coloring, really coloring from childhood than sometimes it feels when you're using some of the larger or the other brands and making more realistic pictures. Not to say you couldn't make realistic pictures with these. I could imagine that. I may try that next and see how maybe making a picture of a bird or some fruit or something might work with these. But for the most part, I really am enjoying these pencils. I think they really they work nice, and I wouldn't have thought that it really was such a big deal to care about whether they rolled around or not, but it is really rather nice that they don't roll at all. Now this one doesn't cover quite as smoothly. It's a little bit, it's like, this is the number, oh, that's where my hand is. The number 9. I'm sorry, I'm reading upside down. The number 9 pink feels like it's a little bit drier than some of the others. And it might have a little to do with my paper as well, but I feel like I'm getting more lines with this particular color. So far my feeling about these colors is that they are really fun to use, really interesting, bright color, beautiful bright color, very smart that they are mechanical colored pencils. I love that idea, and I love the fact that they're refillable. However, on their website right now it sounds like in these times that it's not that easy to get refills for these pencils, but hopefully in the future they will once again become pencils where you can get refills for them, because that's just a wonderful idea to have the barrels be reusable. Really nice pencils. So my own feelings about the Zebra Zensations, I probably won't use them on commissions and things that I frame for exhibits, but I definitely will be using them on cards, which lately I have been doing a lot of, and other types of wrapping paper and different kinds of fun projects, coloring projects that I'm doing, and I do recommend these pencils. I really like them. I hope that Prismacolor and some of the others at some point might someday come up with an option like this where you can buy a lead and put it into this pencil, this mechanical body to be used over and over again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe.